Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel, where we talk every single Big Ten team. You know what it is. It is the Week 12 preview of Big Ten football with some really good games to talk about, honestly. Like, if you're not a Big Ten fan, you're going to be like, oh, Iowa and USC, that's it. Well, you know what? Bullcrap. There are some good games in here to talk about, and there are some matchups that are potentially really exciting. I'm not saying that any team, that is highly favored is going to lose or anything like that, but there's definitely some matchups that will test a few teams, I think, and it'll be fun to kind of get to that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring myself over and bring my graphic up. There it is. Move myself over there. There we go. And we're going to start talking about these games right away. All right, so the Big Ten has 8 games this week. You have Minnesota at Oregon, UCLA at Ohio State, Washington, Wisconsin at Indiana, Michigan at Northwestern, Iowa at USC, Maryland at Illinois, Penn State at Michigan State, and Purdue at Washington. A lot of big spreads in this one. Illinois, Washington, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon are all double-digit favorites. Penn State is only a 7-point favorite on FanDuel over Michigan State, and USC is a 6.5-point favorite over Iowa. So this is going to be a fun kind of one to talk about. Let's start with kind of a mild one, but I do think it has some interesting aspects of this game. Let's talk about Maryland at Illinois. So like I said, Illinois favored in this one by 14.5 on FanDuel. The over-under is set at 53.5. Illinois is 6-3 on the season. The team is coming off a bye week and has a veteran squad that is trying to hit their stride here at the end of the season. They are out of the playoff hopes, unfortunately, but they do still have an opportunity to get to 10 wins, which would be a huge accomplishment for this season. So on my radio spot for Illinois I did earlier this week, the host Jacob brought up that Maryland, they've lost, 5 games in a row. And, they beat Wisconsin, they beat Towson, or they beat Towson and then Wisconsin. One of the two. And they've lost 5 straight. But those 5 games have been pretty competitive. Maryland was in it until the end against Washington, UCLA. They lost that Rutgers game pretty good, but really most of these other ones they've been in it with until the end of the game. So Maryland definitely a team you kind of need to respect, even though they're on their 5-game losing streak and their defense has struggled in Big Ten play. Ted Monachino really had the defense doing well. It's a very aggressive defense, very get after the quarterback type of defense, and I'm wondering how that will pair up against Illinois, as Illinois they have one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. For my money, he's fringe top 5, if not top 5, in Luke Altmaier. And he has an offensive line that's been clicking much more lately in the Big Ten. Really ever since that, what game was it? Because they started doing well in the USC game. It was the Indiana game where they were really awful. And they started doing better against USC. I can't remember if there's a game in between that or not. But started doing better against USC, and they won that game, which was a big win for Illinois. USC was on the road. Tough environment, tough game for them, obviously. And the Illinois ground game has been considerably better lately. Nearly 350 yards at Washington and versus Rutgers, running outside the tackles. They have been primarily going behind J.C. Davis, Melvin Presley, their 2 tackles, and they have more design runs for Luke Altmaier right now, which I think is huge. Dave says, the battle for the least intimidating mascot. At least we didn't beg Disney to not get copyrighted for making it look like Disney characters. He's talking about Goldie. It's Goldie the Gopher, right? And the duck there at Oregon. Yeah. They'll have to have like a mascot off or something. I don't know. Like they'll have to have like a battle, because those are 2 of the best mascots in the Big Ten. They should bring the duck with them. I don't know. Is that stadium around a body of water where they could put the duck at? The big inflatable duck that they brought to Big Ten Media Days a couple years ago. But yeah, appreciate you being here, Dave. We're going to talk about that game for sure. Got that one coming up. Let's maybe we should answer that question there. Which one has more intimidating mascot? And of course, Philip Bring back the chief, he says. Yeah, the Illinois fans are not big fans of the kingfish there. Trojan Fight says, who gets Zion Ely if Loxley gets fired? Probably South Carolina gets him. I think Ohio State was still in on it for a little bit, but they've kind of pivoted and they've actually done a really good job of getting some more defensive linemen. If Penn State was good, I'd give Penn State a good shot, but obviously not very good at Penn State right now. And yeah, I think South Carolina is probably the one. They got tons of NIL, and they like to spend their NIL on defensive linemen. Look at Dylan Stewart. The guy across from him has been pretty good too. I forget what his name is off the top of my head, but yeah, South Carolina I think is probably your bet there. I heard that Maryland might not have the money to fire Mike Loxley if this deal doesn't go through. But who knows? I don't know. I still stand. If he wins one game, he's there. Unfortunately for Maryland, I don't think this is the game they're going to win. I have been impressed with Ted Monachino this season at times. He started off the season very well, and the defensive line in particular will be a key area to watch for this game, in my opinion, because I do think that Illinois is going to start utilizing more designed runs for Luke Altmaier, which I think is very much so in their best interest to do that. I mean, at this point in time, you're trying to win every single game you possibly can, trying to get to 10 wins. The playoffs are no longer a thing, so just go out there, just win, baby. And I'm not saying you get Luke Altmaier hurt or anything, but you throw caution to the wind a little bit more in this one because you need to get to the win. And these guys, Sidney Stewart, Zahir Mathis, the guys in the interior are not bad pass rushers either. They're going to be coming after Luke Altmaier quite a bit, trying to get to him in this offensive line. If it kind of regresses a little bit to what they were before, you could find Luke Altmaier being pressured pretty hard in this one. Now, I do think the running game is going to help with that, but in my opinion, the running game has been severely helped by Luke Altmaier and his running ability. They didn't really start running Luke Altmaier with as many. I mean, there was like one or two a game before Washington, but in that Washington game, they finally just said, heck with it. Start running him and get him out there. Now, it worked well for him, but at the same time, this Illinois defense has to play well because if the Illinois offense starts getting behind again, then they could possibly be, pressing a little bit like they were in that Washington game. And you don't want an Illinois offense pressing because that's not when they're at their best. This Illinois offense is at their best when they're on schedule, doing their own thing, whether it's tempo, not tempo, and they're just running their offense. If they feel pressured, if Luke Altmaier feels pressured in the pocket, it's not a good situation for this team. So thankfully, Illinois does not have Antoine Raymond for Maryland because he was the one that kind of went crazy. But Illinois does have a good stable of backs: Aiden Lawfrey, Caden Fagan, Khalil Valentine. They should all play in this game, I do believe, and they all kind of bring something different to the table, and they all kind of have fresh legs. So we talk about that a lot with Oregon and how impressive it is with their running back room and the fresh legs they have. But for Illinois, if they can utilize their fresh legs as well, that's going to be really important for them to do too. And I think you're going to see Sidney Stewart, Zahir Mathis challenged a bit more on the outside in some of their run stopping. Now, you do have to watch out for Daniel Wingate, the linebacker for Maryland. He has been one of the best run stoppers in the Big Ten this season. I think he leads the Big Ten, or he's in the top 3 in the Big Ten. I can't remember in the stop stat for PFF, which is actually one of my favorite stats to use for run defense. It's not tackles for loss, but it is you make the tackle. Excuse me. You make the tackle on a running play that prevents success rate. So success rate is like 3 yards on first down. Like you pick up 3 yards on first down. It would be pick up 3 or 4 yards, however much it is on second down, and then get the first down, third down. So as long as you are staying on schedule, that's essentially what success rate is. Daniel Wingate is one of the best linebackers at not allowing success rate in the Big Ten. It's impressive, and I think that he's definitely somebody that this Illinois offense is going to have to look out for. Not as confident in the corners for Maryland. Obviously, they can get some turnovers and do a good job there, but I like these Illinois wide receivers. Hudson Clement came on, and he's looked better this past game. Cole Rusk looked pretty good against Washington, and Hank Beatty has been the consistent target the entire time, and then Justin Bullock will kind of pop up with a big contested catch or two each game. So you have some options here with this Illinois wide receiver core, and I think that's something that's going to give Maryland a hard time. Not to say I don't believe in Maryland's secondary or anything like that. I think Maryland has a good secondary. I think it's great, but I think it's pretty good, average to good, somewhere in that range. And yeah, we'll go from there. So let's look at the Illinois defense. The Illinois defense, at its best, they're effective at creating turnovers. So if they can create turnovers against Malik Washington this game, that's going to be key for him. Malik Washington has shown glimpses of being a very successful quarterback in college football, but the last 3 games, he has thrown 4 interceptions. That is not a good recipe for success against this Illinois defense, even with Xavier Scott out. And I've not heard that he's coming back. We'll have to see for sure. But I don't know when his timetable is to come back, if he even comes back. But Xavier Scott, he's obviously a huge piece for this team to be able to get turnovers, but even without him, Illinois, I do think they're going to start playing a little bit more loose and aggressive. After we saw them in that Rutgers game, I think that's going to be important for them to continue to do that, and we'll see if that happens. So, but Washington, if he wants to be successful, he needs to be better at or not, he needs to be better. He needs to have better wide receivers. He needs to have better skill position players. The offensive line is a good pass blocking unit, but the wide receivers on the outside, they've looked better here as of late, but they've not been good enough on the season. The running backs not been good enough. And then the run blocking of the offensive line has also not been good enough to help this team out. And you see it with Maryland being less than 40% on third down the past 3 games. Illinois, one of the biggest areas their defense struggles is on third down. They struggle to be able to get off the field. They in conference play, opponents are converting a third down at a 54+% rate. That is one of the worst in college football. If you look at nationally, that is the third worst. That is the third worst third down defense in the Power 4 of college football. So, not great. But also Maryland's not great on third down either, so it'll kind of be a little bit of a challenge of third down to see who comes out there. Overall, my pick is for Illinois to win the game, 34-21. I think Maryland gets their points. I think Illinois gets more points. Look for a big Luke Altmaier game. Would not be surprised if you see another 4 passing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns, and then maybe a rushing touchdown in there as well. They're going to need to continue to utilize Luke Altmaier if they want to have success and win there. So. Philip says Xavier Scott not coming back this year. That's kind of what I thought. Did that get announced for sure? I didn't see that. If that got announced for sure, Philip, appreciate you correcting me on that. But yeah, so I didn't think he was coming back either. But I didn't see a report if there was one. So all right. James says Indiana's better than Wisconsin. We'll see. Philip says not official. Yeah, not official. So I did not presume that was going to happen, but yeah, not official yet. So Joshua says Illinois 34, Maryland 17. I think that's a good score prediction there. Pretty in line with mine. Any other Illinois, Maryland skill predictions, put them in the chat there, and I'll bring them on. I'm going to drink really fast, and then we'll get on to Washington and Purdue. Oh, crap. Texas Tech has the lead now. Not good for Illinois. All right. Okay. Let's talk Purdue at Washington. Washington's favorite. Oh, Philip says 45, Illinois, Maryland 17. Base, hold that USC Iowa one until the end. That's when we're going to go over that game. All right. Purdue at Washington. Washington favored in this one by 16.5. The over-under set at 53.5. Purdue won the last meeting between these teams, in fact, in 2002 in the Sun Bowl. But Washington does lead the series overall 7-1. For Washington, they have 3 key offensive players who got injured in the loss against Wisconsin, and their status for the game is unknown. Let's talk through the Purdue offense first a little bit. Ryan Brown, he's been they've been creative with utilizing him, and he's been a nice threat with his legs. The problem with Ryan Brown is he does kind of chuck the ball all over the field. He throws it downfield probably more than he should. The Purdue wide receivers are improved this year, but they are still nothing fantastic. They're better than they were last year, but I wouldn't label them as good. I would say they're probably average at best, which is substantially better than last year. And I think some of those chucking the ball downfield and stuff is adding to his turnovers. So not great for Ryan Brown. Devin Mockabee, he's still out. He's hurt. You've really seen the run game kind of take a dip ever since he was out. And the hard part for Purdue in this one, I know Washington's just coming off the loss to Wisconsin, and that's devastating. But this is a home game for Washington. In the home games for Washington, Damon Williams has been fantastic. That's when he had the game against Rutgers, 400 passing yards, 100 rushing yards. I don't see Washington coming back with another bad game here. I suppose it's possible that they kind of pull a Penn State versus UCLA, but I think the thing that gets overlooked in that is that Penn State was away and traveled across the country, so that contributed to that. Washington's going to be at home here. They're going to have the fans behind them. They're going to want to continue to play well, and I think this Washington team finishes the season with probably 8 wins this year. They take care of business here against Purdue. The Purdue defense, here's an interesting stat. I think their 2 best games this season, the defense, has been against Minnesota and Northwestern, and both of those games were on the road. I think their 2 worst defensive efforts of the season, just based on what I watched, was against Michigan and Notre Dame. Now, you might be saying, JR, Michigan only scored 21 points on them. Yes, but if you watch that game, there were wide receivers open all over the place. Bryce Underwood hit some of them, and then he did not hit ones at all. And also Michigan could not, they could not stop anything with their run defense in that game either. So not a great situation there for Purdue with them going up against another good offense. I think Washington's a better offense than. I should say this. Washington at home is a better offense than Michigan and Notre Dame, but that's also, it has to be at home. We'll see. Washington could, like I said, they could not be as good, but they are exceptional at home this season. Mainly Damon Williams, he's been fantastic. Young QB, he's still, I think, his 11th start now in this game, so still not all that many starts, but. Jonah Coleman, Jed Fish said that he is questionable to be back. It sounds like they're going to do everything he can to get him back, so I would lean that he is going to play, but you just never know in these situations. Denzel Boston, he said he's not sure, but I think Denzel Boston will play because he did kind of get back in there and play a little bit more. I guess it's possibly could have re-aggravated something, but I think Washington probably has Denzel Boston, and then the right tackle Drew Asparati, he is most likely out in this game, and he's a pretty good run blocker. So having him out definitely something that you're gonna miss, but we'll see how the right tackle does in the next one. So I have Washington winning this game 38. Sorry, guys. I've Washington winning this game 38-17. I think Washington gets back on track with their offense. Would not surprise me at all if Purdue scores more points. I have a feeling that Purdue's offense is going to get rock and rolling so much that Ryan Brown is going to start pressing again, and then you could see some interceptions, stuff like that. Probably will have a red zone or 2 trips where they don't score because Purdue is kind of like Rutgers in the way that they can pick up yards, but they're not always great at converting into those yards. So let's see what you guys got in the comments. Philip says Washington 42, Purdue 24. I do not disagree. Joshua Justice has a little bit closer. He says Washington 31, Purdue 21. If Purdue is able to stop Washington a little bit more, that could happen. And then Dave with the hot take says 24-21 Purdue. Washington has approval. Has to prove a lot to me after losing to bad Wisconsin team. Try not to cuss on here, but you can cuss in the comments. I don't care. But yeah, you know what? I think that's fair, Dave. I think that's fair. That's a bad Wisconsin team they lost to. So if you need to be proven a little bit more, I do not disagree. All right, let's get to UCLA at Ohio State. Ohio State is a 33.5 favorite on FanDuel. The over/under is set at 48.5. UCLA will be playing their first game at Ohio Stadium since 1999. Ohio State will rematch with Nico Iamaleava after he came to Columbus just last year. So UCLA, their first time in almost 30 years coming to Columbus. Nico Iamaleava came here just last year. And he was a really, really tough in that game. It was an impressive performance of toughness by Nico Iamaleava. He really couldn't do anything to the defense, but I think that you're going to see more of that in this one. Nico has been really, really tough this season, fighting for extra yards, taking hits, continuing to stay in the game. There's a lot of guys that the way UCLA's season has gone, they would have just, said, "Get me out of here. I'm not going to continue to do this." I give I give a lot of credit to Nico Iamaleava for him continuing to play, and not just play, but continuing to play hard, put his body on the line, play very tough football, and continuing to be out there for him and his teammates. So I give a lot of credit to Nico. I think the issue for Nico is that Arvell Reese is on the other side, and Arvell Reese is one of, if not the best, quarterback spies in all of college football. So UCLA could possibly run the ball a little bit in this one, but I don't think it's very likely. I think that their wide receivers could find some success. I don't think that anybody should pick for UCLA to be shut out in this one. I could see UCLA getting to 10 points, especially if there's like a late drive or something like that, where they get a touchdown or get a field goal. Um, so yeah, I think UCLA is going to put up at least a touchdown in this game, but maybe just a field goal. I don't think it'll be all that much. Maybe two scores, but probably just one. And then on the Ohio State side, UCLA has allowed 150 plus rushing yards and 5 TDs in the last two games. That means each game, the last two, they've allowed 150 or more rushing yards and 5 TDs overall. Not great run defense from UCLA. As much as they have improved ever since the firing of Deshaun Foster, that's one area that really hasn't improved. I know I talked about the pressure on the quarterback a couple weeks ago with Indiana. Now the run defense, it got a little bit better, but then it's kind of dipped back down now, and it's not been great. I think that Ohio State could possibly really lean on the run game. However, Ohio State, every time they have a high rushing attempt game, they follow it up with like a low rushing attempt game. Ohio State ran the ball over 40 times last game. I don't think you're going to see Ohio State come out and do that again. I think that Ohio State is fully aware of the Heisman Trophy, and they want Julian Sayin or Jeremiah Smith to win the Heisman Trophy. Does that mean they throw it 40 times like they did against Wisconsin? No, I don't think so, but I would not be surprised if this is like a Minnesota game where UCLA is coming down trying to take away the run or whatever it might be, and Julian Sayin starts going over the top, especially if Carnell Tate plays. If Carnell Tate plays, I like the ability for them to score more points because they'll use the deep ball more and stuff. But if he doesn't play, I think you might have a little bit of a Purdue game where they're just in the 30s or something like that. I don't think that. I shouldn't say I don't think that. But I definitely think that Ohio State's going to score points in this one. It's just at how quickly of a rate will they score points. They don't run all that many plays, but they do try to get out there and they do try to score points, obviously. So I think you're going to see the rushing attempts down in this one. I think UCLA is going to try to take away the run, and I think you'll see Ohio State go over the top. So I've typically picked Ohio State to score in the 30s in a low-scoring game by the other team. I'm actually going to pick Ohio State to score 42 in this one and have it be 42-7 in favor of the Buckeyes. Philip is similar to me, 38-9 Ohio State over UCLA. Joshua has it 42-14, so just one more touchdown than me. I could see that happening. I could see a big play or something, or something going against Ohio State. The UCLA offense is not bad. Nico, good quarterback, uses toughness, can pick up some first downs, help him down there. Dave says 45-10 OSU, and then based 4L says 38-10 Ohio State. So yeah, we're all about the same thing. Now, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I don't think Ohio State's gonna fall asleep or anything like that. So I think Ohio State will be good in this one. All right, let's move on to Minnesota at Oregon. Was just talking about that one. Let's get into this one as Oregon is favored by, I believe is it 24 or 25 and a half here? 25 and a half on FanDuel. The over under is set at 44 and a half, and I think Oregon will come out completely ready to play in this one. My concern is that Oregon could be a little sleepy after the big win last week against Iowa and then the USC game coming up, right? I think there's a possibility they could be a little sleepy, and you do not want to be sleepy against Minnesota. Minnesota, had Greg on, and Greg was not super high on his Gophers. But like all the coaches kind of say it about each other, but it really does ring true about PJ Fleck. Like PJ Fleck's going to put together a good game plan, and when that game plan goes his way, if you're sleepy and you let PJ Fleck have a game plan go his way, you could be in trouble. In fact, Minnesota leads this series over Oregon 3-1. The last game they played was in the Sun Bowl in 2003. I believe Minnesota won that game in that Sun Bowl. A lot of Sun Bowls against the Big Ten, Pac-12 teams. So I think that Oregon should be fine in this game, but you also just don't know. Oregon is on a 10-game winning streak on the road as well. They lead the series, so watch out for Oregon. Good team on the road. Dan Lanning definitely getting his guys up for that one. Now, if we look at the offense of Oregon, obviously very, very heavy running attack. One of the best running attacks, if not the running attack. It is at Minnesota. Yeah, I said at Oregon, didn't I? Or no, it's at Oregon. Sorry. Why did I say on the road? I wrote that down wrong. Thank you, Mr. Bucknuts, for helping me out there. I said that wrong. Minnesota at Oregon. So yeah, I mean Oregon has a 10-game winning streak on the road, but that's my bad. So yeah, at Oregon could be a little sleepy. Minnesota, it's not terrible travel for them to be able to get there. I meant to make that point as well. I think sometimes you think like West Coast game. It's terrible travel for somebody. Minnesota and Wisconsin are two of the better teams to be able to travel up to the Pacific Northwest against Oregon and Seattle. Obviously, Iowa's up there a little bit too. Nebraska, those things help. Actually, Iowa probably has a tougher time traveling down to South Carolina than they do up to Washington or Oregon. But anyway, geography might be a little off. But yeah, I think this Oregon offense, best running attack in the country. If you ask me, Poncho, Emmanuel Pregnon, they've been fantastic. Isaiah World, he's been a really, really good pass protector this season, but he's been a good run blocker too. Alex Harkey is going to be key to see if he can get back. I believe he's probably their best run blocker on the team, and so sometimes you can just kind of pull him, or you can just go run straight behind him, and that's really, really effective for this Oregon team. So if Alex Harkey is back, that's going to be really, really helpful for him, not just in this game against Minnesota, but also to give him one more game to kind of, come back and get a little bit more ready for the Oregon or the USC. This is Oregon, the USC game coming up. So definitely need to think about that. The wide receivers, their injuries, and Kenyon Sadiq as well, Kenyon Sadiq is one of the best run blocking tight ends out there. That's definitely something to be thinking about as well. But really what I want to see out of Oregon in this game is I want to see them utilize play action more. This is one of the best, if not the best, running attacks in the country. And Dante Moore has not utilized play action a whole lot this season. It's not like they don't do it at all or anything, but it's just not as much as you might think with as good of a run game as Oregon has. So I want to see if they can incorporate that more in this game. We'll see. But really at the end of the day, Minnesota's going to have to play their best game. Their linebackers are going to have to be on point in this one because Oregon can run the ball anywhere they want to. Kingsbury, Branowski, I believe is how you pronounce it. They're both going to have to be ready. Anthony Smith, he's probably not going to get as many opportunities to go sack the quarterback. He had a good number of sacks last week and everything, but I don't think you're going to have that coming at you as much. So the main thing for Minnesota will be to play within the game plan that PJ Fleck has for them. I don't know exactly how PJ Fleck is going to scheme up for this defense to go against this Oregon team. I think they're going to pack the box, but at the same time, I think you pack the box too much. Oregon still has really good speed on the outside. When Oregon wide receivers gets hurt, it's like going from like the Ferrari to the Cadillac, and they're not the best receivers they've ever had this season. Corey Moore's a true freshman and he's starting, but they're not bad. And they have a lot of these guys who, even though they may not be living up to their 5-star potential, they typically have some kind of 5-star trait, some kind of thing that really adds to who they are as a player and makes them kind of stand out. So definitely think that this Oregon offense should have the edge over this Minnesota defense. I think Coy Parrish needs to have a good day. Like I said, Kingsbury, he needs to have a good day. The corners on the outside are going to have to be on point because Dante Moore showed in that Iowa game, if he needs to, he'll just get it to his guys and let them go after it and try to make the catch. So there could be some opportunities there a little bit for the Minnesota cornerbacks and safeties. We'll see, but definitely need the Minnesota defense to be on point in this game, going up against a fantastic rushing attack. For the Oregon defense, going to be really, really tough for Minnesota to run the ball on one of the best, if not the best, defensive tackle duo in the country of Bear Alexander and Amari Washington. They have just been fantastic this season. I will eat my words about Bear Alexander. I said I didn't think Bear Alexander could do it. Silly me. Bear Alexander looks like a really good defensive tackle this year. I definitely think he's somebody that needs more consideration for what he's done. And if you do stop the run, then Drake Lindsey is going to have to pass the ball more, and you're going to have somebody like Brandon Finney back there, Dylan Thieneman. I forget how you pronounce his last name, but good secondary back there, corners, Theron John. Well, yeah. Anyway, good secondary back there and everything. Definitely need to be on the lookout for those guys there at Minnesota and Brandon Finney. I just think if you require Drake Lindsey to throw the ball too much in this one, you're going to give Brandon Finney a chance, who has been huge for Oregon this season. He's been fantastic at being able to get the picks. He had the pick 6 against Fernando Mendoza in that game, and definitely need to be on the watch out for that one. So Minnesota, their most important thing is just try to get the yards, keep the success rate up. It's going to be really, like I said, it's going to be difficult to do that against this good run defense for Oregon and just what they're able to do in the trenches. Oregon's linebackers might be a weakness, but if it's a weakness, it's like very little weakness because this Oregon defense all around is just really good, has really good units. So I like Oregon in this game. I do have the caveat: if Oregon comes out and they are, a little light, maybe not as motivated, then you could see an interesting game here from Minnesota. But at the same time, Minnesota's also struggled with not showing up for every single game as much as you think they should. You saw them against Purdue do that, but I think PJ Fleck will have them ready for this one. So I do give Minnesota some credit, got him scoring 10 points, but ultimately I have Oregon winning this game 35-10. Based, I'm really close to you there, 35-17. Oregon says, Mr. Bucknut says 30-16. Oregon, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. So, Mr. Bucknut says Oregon will have a dogfight with USC and Washington, though they may drop one of those. I'm really interested to see that Oregon USC game. That's going to be a really, really fun game. Really, really fun game. So, Dave said this is definitely a good Minnesota beats the spread game. Actually, that is true. Yeah, good chance that they could be able to do that. It's 25.5, and yeah, I have Minnesota covering in this one. Although I have Oregon winning 35-10. At 25.5, I have Minnesota covering in this one. So they're very, very well could. So Minnesota probably needs to open up that run pass option. It will get Oregon troubles. Yeah, they need to bring that run pass option back. The problem is, Darius Taylor, is he going to play? And they don't have bad running backs, but it's just if he doesn't play, you're on your third string running back again, right? You're really relying on AJ Turner to be there this season and to be better playing. Unfortunately, it's just not been the case for him, but we'll see. So, Christopher says, does it matter how USC wins these games if they win out? Do they have to look impressive to get in? I think it probably matters more what the teams do in front of them than USC has to look impressive. I think USC would jump Vanderbilt by beating Oregon and Iowa. I don't know for sure. I think if Oklahoma loses to Alabama, they're definitely below USC, especially if they beat Oregon and Iowa. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be an interesting one. I would say it never hurts to blow a team out. It never hurts. So, all right. Bay says if USC wins, they're in, no doubt. I would say it's very, very likely they're in. My biggest concern would be Vanderbilt. my biggest concern would be Vanderbilt and what happens with Texas. You know, or if Texas loses, what happens with Oklahoma? Because if Oklahoma beats Alabama, Alabama stayed in the playoffs, so that's another spot taken up. Oregon is probably out of the playoffs. They'd have to be out of the playoffs. Texas would still be in the no. Texas loses. Notre Dame would still be in the playoff. So yeah, because you'd have Oklahoma replace Texas. Yeah, USC probably gets in there, and as long as they jump Vanderbilt, they should. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't jump Vanderbilt, but yeah, they said they do love the SEC. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yeah. Who would have thought USC versus SEC bias after USC beat two SEC teams last year? The bias could still get them. Fight on, appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. He says, how's it going, JR? Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Trying to get through these games. I did not think I would take all that long going by myself, but we're an hour and a half in, and I still have half the games left to talk about. So, all right. Penn State at Michigan State. Penn State favored in this one by 7.5. Penn State leads the series over Michigan State 19-18 and 1. Michigan State some drama right now. They are 3-6 on the season. Well, Penn State is 3-6 on the season as well. And Aiden Childs was benched last game in favor of Alicio Milivosic. Jonathan Smith, said that they're still battling for the starting job. They are still both getting first team reps at this point. So who knows what that means? It's really hard to preview this offense when you don't know what it's going to be with Aiden Childs or Misavojic, or how do you pronounce it? It's Milivojevic. So it's really hard. I want it to be Childs just so I don't have to keep trying to say that last name. So it's really hard to try and preview the offense. The best way I can preview it is that the offense does look different with the two quarterbacks. They're going to utilize more QB run and have more kind of stuff for Aiden Childs if he's in there. If Alicio is in there, he's going to be much more the kind of, drop back, pass it, very, very, very basic, not very basic, but traditional kind of stuff with him. I personally think you have to start Childs in this game. With the pass rush that Penn State was able to show last game, you can't put a true freshman pocket passer quarterback out there running a more traditional offense against this Jim Knowles team. Now, I know everybody's low on Jim Knowles, and I get it. I'm not super high on Jim Knowles right now either. But Jim Knowles still knows how to draw up a blitz. He did not forget how to draw up a blitz, evidence of that Indiana game. He knows how to draw up a blitz. He knows how to get pressure on the quarterback. If you stick a true freshman quarterback back there and Alessio that's a pocket passer, I think he's going to be in for a terrible day. You saw Minnesota get really good pressure on him. I think they had six sacks in the first half. This QB pressure for Penn State will decimate Alessio if they put him back there. I think you have to go with Aiden Childs. He has to be the one that you put back there instead. We'll see. They're still battling for the starting spot, as Jonathan Smith says. But overall, I think Penn State, they've just been so close in some of these games. Penn State, their offense has scored 20 or more against two of the best defenses in college football. Against Indiana and Iowa, they scored more than 20 points against both those teams. And I know Penn State only scored 14 against Ohio State, but it was 4th and goal at the end of that game. Right? In their last drive, it was 4th and goal. Penn State had the opportunity. If they kicked a field goal, they would have scored the most points on Ohio State that anybody has this season. I know Ethan Grunkmeyer, young QB. They don't have a lot of wide receivers, everything else. But Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton have been really, really good. Well, Nicholas Singleton was really, really good last game. The last game against Indiana was exactly the type of combo you need to see between those two guys. Nicholas Singleton picking up the big chunk plays. He had 6.4 yards per touch last game in that game against Indiana. And then Katron Allen has been excellent at picking up first downs this season. 4th most first downs picked up in the Big Ten. The only guys in front of him are Antoine Raymond and Emmett Johnson, who both have over 200 carries on the season. Jonah Coleman, who honestly picked up a lot of his first downs in the out of conference, which no shade there. You picked up your first downs, get your stats. I'm just saying that it happened against maybe a team that's not as good. And so I think that Nicholas Singleton is going to continue to play well. I think he's going to continue to be the back that you need him to be. He's going to continue in that role, and I think you're going to see Katron Allen continue to grind, pick up first downs, do a good job of keeping the chains moving for your team. And this has probably been the best thing that Terry Smith has done since he's taken over at Penn State's head coach. So I actually have Penn State getting above 30 in this one. Penn State wins 31-13 over Michigan State. Sorry, Michigan State. Not your day. Even though it's at Michigan State, it's not a long trip. It's not like that's a terrible environment to go into. Yeah, I got Penn State in this one, covering by a good amount too. So I think that's a little bit. I think the spreads have been all over the place with Penn State this season. It's been kind of crazy. So, all right. Fight on says Jr. can believe where they're ranked, overrated Texas and Oklahoma, and extremely overrated Vanderbilt. Yes, exactly. And you look at like the power ratings and like the odds and stuff like that. USC is thought of much more highly than the College Football Playoff Committee thinks of them or the AP poll thinks of them. I guarantee USC against a Vanderbilt, probably even against an Oklahoma, I believe they would be favored on a neutral field against those two teams, at least, some of the way we're seeing some of the spreads. So I think USC is a better team than both those are given credit for, personally. But I think USC will have the chance to prove it, and who knows? They might make it into the playoffs if they're able to pick up the two of these last three games here. I should say two of these last three, all three of these last three games. I just know Oregon and Iowa are the big ones that are going to be resume builders. UCLA not going to be a resume builder, but still a tough rivalry game. It's something you have to think about. So, all right, give me 1 second, guys. Hard doing a show on your own. All right. Three more games. Wisconsin at Indiana. Indiana favored by 30 or 29 and a half on FanDuel, over under set at 43 and a half. Wisconsin 3-6 on the season. They got their third win. They are 1-5 in the Big Ten. They lead the series 41-20-2, but lost the last two meetings to Indiana. By the way, did anybody think that in Week 12 Wisconsin would have more Big Ten wins than Penn State? Crazy. Crazy town. Indiana is 10-0 on the season, 7-0 in the Big Ten. Undefeated at home in Cignetti's entire time at Indiana. But watch out, Luke Fickell, better on the road than he is at home in his time at Wisconsin. Fickell is 7-6 on the road at Wisconsin. Folks, he is 6-13 at home. Wisconsin playing better on the road with Fickell than they are at home. Interesting thing to think about here. Maybe they just don't like playing at home. Who knows? All right, so Indiana's offense. I do have some numbers here about Fernando Mendoza. Fernando Mendoza, I would say ever since the Michigan State game, he's not been himself. He's not played as well, I don't think. Still a good player, obviously, and still deserves to be in there for the Heisman conversation. But I just think consistently he's not played as well, personally. And I think a big reason for that has been that Indiana is running fewer RPOs right now than they have been recently. So Indiana has run 6 or fewer RPOs in 3 games this season. Sorry, they've run 6 or fewer RPOs in 3 games this season. Those 3 games: Maryland, Penn State, Iowa. Maryland, arguably the game where Fernando Mendoza struggled the most with the turnover early on. I should say struggled. He was utilized the least in that one because they went to the run game. So that one's a little bit different. I won't count that one. But Penn State and Iowa. Yes, he had the great game-winning drive against Penn State and definitely deserves credit for that. And we can give him all the praise in the world for being able to do that. However, it was not a great game up until that point. Good job running the ball, getting a rushing touchdown. That rushing touchdown was awesome, by the way. So he's gets the job done, does what he needs to get done. But I do have a concern here with him running less RPOs in some games, and that coinciding with the games where maybe he's not had the best stats or maybe not played as well. So I tend to believe they're running less RPO against teams that are able to get better pressure on Fernando Mendoza, just because it takes more time back there and you are kind of stagnant as the quarterback. So Penn State, Penn State, Iowa, and Maryland, all good pass rush, able to get to the quarterback. Penn State, I think, was the one that did that the best out of all of them, but Definitely something to track here a little bit more. I want to see them utilize the RPO a little bit more. Surratt did not play against, sorry, they didn't play. He didn't play against Maryland or Penn State, but he did play against Iowa. So does Surratt have anything to do with the less amount of RPOs? I don't know. We'll see. And then Wisconsin, their defense, look, they don't have as great of numbers. At one point, they were top 10 in the nation against the run, so it was much easier to point that out. But they've not as great of numbers because they have played teams like Oregon and Iowa and Indiana, three of the best rushing attacks in all of college football. So when you play teams like that, your numbers against the run are not going to be as good. And you saw that against a team like Ohio State that's not ran the ball super well this season, and a team like Washington who had to run the ball but couldn't run the ball as well against Wisconsin because of just how effective they were stopping the run. Wisconsin has good linebackers, and they've had good linebackers the entire time Luke Fickell has been there. That's a position that he's been really big with. And honestly, like, Wisconsin has a case to have a top 5 defensive line in the Big Ten this season. I mean, you've got Ohio State up there, Oregon up there, Iowa up there, Indiana's obviously up there, and then outside of those 4, you've really got kind of, a mesh of teams, and really it's just kind of whoever plays the best each week. USC's has looked really good at times, but they've also not looked great at times. Penn State's has looked good at times, but they've also not looked great at times. So Wisconsin, probably a fringe top 5 defensive line in the Big Ten this season, and I don't think a whole lot of people would think about it if you didn't know this Wisconsin team, what they've been able to accomplish this year. So Wisconsin, sneaky good against the RPO, sneaky good defensive line. I think this will be a really good test to see if they're able to run the RPO in this one. Maybe run it even if there's some pressure getting to the quarterback. I'm interested to see that. And then Indiana's defense, this is where Indiana definitely wins the game. I have no idea what Wisconsin's going to do to run the ball or to move the ball. Not even just run the ball, move the ball in this game. They had 48 passing yards last game against Washington. And yes, some of that was because of the rain and everything else, but it's not a good passing attack. It's not a good passing. Do they start Carter Smith? Danny O'Neal got injured. I believe he got injured in that one. Hunter Simmons played for a little bit, but you bring in Carter Smith. Carter Smith didn't throw. I think he was like 3 for 12 in that game, so it wasn't the greatest throwing the ball day, but he was able to kind of run the ball a little bit better and use his legs, something you would have thought Danny O'Neal could do a little bit more with, but he just doesn't when he's out there. So my only thought is maybe you run Carter Smith a little bit more and really let him have some action. But the problem with that is that these Indiana linebackers are crazy good. Hardy is, for my money, the best run defending linebacker in the Big Ten. Isaiah Jones is fantastic. Aiden Fisher, he's been a little beat up lately with the injuries and stuff. We'll see if he plays in this one. I think he does since he played last game. He should be fine. But with these linebackers of Indiana and that defensive line and how they're able to rotate this season and everything, like I don't see a way that Wisconsin scores more than 3 points if they score more than 3 points in this one. Maybe I'm being too rough on Wisconsin. Maybe I'm not enough of a believer. I like to think that maybe Carter Smith can get something done. I'm going to pick Indiana to win this game 38-0. Sorry, Wisconsin fans. Sorry. I did believe in you last week a little bit, and I should have said that in the preview. But yeah, I don't see the ability to run the ball, move the ball as much, and I think that's going to be troublesome. So, all right, let's see. Do you guys got any predictions? Bull says 70-3. For Indiana. It could happen. It could happen. Joshua says Indiana 34, Wisconsin 13. If Wisconsin's able to move the ball a little bit, yeah, I think they could get up there. Like I said, I don't know how they're going to move it personally. Fight says, JR, do you think that King Miller can get over 100 yards on Iowa's D? Yeah. Yeah. USC has silently had one of the better running attacks in the Big Ten this season. Not just the Big Ten, they've had a really good running attack in all of college football. So, yeah, I think he can. I probably won't pick it to happen, but I think he can. Yeah, we'll have to see. So, I wonder what his over-under is for that one. Let's look at King Miller's over-under for yards on FanDuel really fast. On FanDuel, King Miller's over-under 109.5. So there you go. Fight on. Yeah. He can definitely get over 100. The over under for him is set at 109.5. Kamari Moulton is set at 74.5 over under. So yeah, definitely a good possibility there that happens. So um Timothy says play calling hasn't been as good in the second part of the season. It took them 3.5 quarters to find the seam routes. That's true. Fernando, like that was one of the underrated parts about Curtis Work is how comfortable he was throwing over the middle. And honestly, when that happens, you kind of just get so used to it that it's like, oh yeah, we can throw over the middle all these times. But Fernando Mendoza, they throw much more to the outside with him. And I believe that's where most of his interceptions have happened on like deep out routes, if I'm remembering correctly. And that's definitely something that they need to be more cautious with. Now, Ricardo Holman, he had a bunch of picks 2 years ago. This Wisconsin secondary has looked better here recently, so maybe they give Fernando Mendoza some fits, but you know that's the biggest thing. I don't know how Washington. I don't know how Wisconsin scores to like Wisconsin might be able to get pick six maybe, but I think I just don't know Wisconsin scores personally. So all right, let's get to. We'll get to Iowa and USC in just a minute. Before we get to that, let's finish off the other ones. Michigan at Northwestern. Michigan favored in this one by 12.5. The over-under set at 41.5 on FanDuel. Michigan has gone from 11-3 on the road under Harbaugh from 2021 to 2023 to now Sherrone Moore is 3-5 on the road under Sherrone Moore. Northwestern is 5-4 on the season. They hold a 4-1 record in home games this season, though this game is played at more of the neutral site field at Wrigley Field in Chicago, which whenever you play there against big brand teams like Michigan, you tend to get a whole lot more fans from that fan base. They want to see Wrigley Field and see a football game in there and all that stuff, the pageantry and everything else with it. So but my biggest question in this one is how healthy Michigan is. Honestly, like Northwestern kind of has everything going for them in this game to be able to upset Michigan. They have an injured Michigan team. They have Michigan on the road. They have Michigan looking forward to Ohio State. Like that's the big game at the end of the season. If Northwestern is going to be able to upset Michigan, it's going to be because of one of those few factors, right? It's something being on the road for Michigan. Maybe they just because they don't play as well on the road typically. Something to do with the injuries, possibly. Does that Michigan defense look as good with some of their key injuries they have, and then as well. Michigan offense needs to have a passing attack with their running attack. We just talked about how good Oregon's running attack is, and it's very good. Michigan has one of the best running attacks in the country, too. They're rushing for 6 yards per carry. And if this rushing attack can just get some consistent help from the offense, you saw what it looked like. Bryce Underwood threw for over 200 passing yards in 3 straight games, not the last 2, but the 3 before that, he was able to throw for 200 plus passing yards in each of those 3 games. He threw for 5 touchdowns in those as well. But the last 2, he's thrown for less than 150 yards in both games, and he has 0 passing touchdowns. So if this Michigan team is going to be able to come out and score a bunch of points, score 30 points, they're going to need both the rushing attack and the passing attack. We know that rushing attack for Michigan is going to be fantastic, even if Justice Haynes doesn't play. I don't think he plays for the rest of the season, personally, but even if he doesn't play, then you're going to have Jordan Marshall out there. And Jordan Marshall's a really good back. And he's shown his ability to be able to get loose and make some things happen. So I think this Michigan team is going to be fine to win the game because they're going to be able to lean on the rushing attack. That offensive line blocking, run blocking for them is elite. It seems like no matter what, no matter who's in there. But I just I have a feeling about this game. I have a feeling kind of like I did with that Washington-Wisconsin game. And I didn't say it back then, so I'm saying it now, but we'll see what happens. Another one of the reasons why I have a feeling is not only the Michigan offense, and I mean, I just said like Michigan has a really good rushing attack, so I'm not trying to say it's a bad offense or anything. They just need Bryce Underwood to be able to enhance that rushing attack, right? that this Northwestern offense, Preston Stone might not be the real deal, but Griffin Wildy or Wildy, he's a good receiver for this team. When he is on and he's making plays, they're a much better unit. And then also Caleb Komalafe. I mean, you guys know how much I like Caleb Komalafe. He has been a really good running back. He looks like one of the best running backs in the Big Ten this season, in my opinion. I think he's up there with the Jonah Coleman, Emmett Johnson, Katron Allen. I think Justice Haynes is probably the best running back, but he just hasn't been playing lately. So, but I think up there with those guys, Caleb Komalafe is up there. And he started the season, I think it's like running back 3 or maybe the backup running back. I think he was running back 3 for Northwestern. So this Northwestern team, they don't have quite the rushing attack that Michigan does. Sounds explosive and stuff like that, but they definitely have a solid rushing attack that if Michigan is missing some of their linebackers, Jimmy Rolder, Cole Sullivan, guys like that, you could see some issues there, especially if Jayshon Barham is out as well. They kind of moved him back to linebacker last game and that Purdue game, and then he got injured, but they had the bye week. They should be more rested. They should have some more healthy guys, and that should help them. And for that reason, I have Michigan winning this game 24-20 over Northwestern. I think Northwestern's going to score a little bit. I think Northwestern's going to be able to move the ball a little bit, but I think Michigan's defense is going to stop them at the end of the day, and Michigan gets the win. Either 24-20, I could also see like a 31-20 or something like that. The biggest key factor for me is Bryce Underwood, right? That rushing defense is going to be really good for Michigan. Can Bryce Underwood come in and complement it? We'll see. We'll see. All right. You guys got any score predictions in here that I need to get to? Joshua says Michigan 27, Northwestern 17. I think that makes sense. Yeah. The kicking game for Michigan has not been as good recently. It's interesting. Base says Northwestern's actually a pretty decent team. Michigan will squeak it out 24-20. Yeah, and that's another thing that needs to be said. Like, I know Northwestern is 5-4, and I know people want to crap on Northwestern all the time, and I get that. Northwestern still did beat Penn State. Like I could get it. It was Penn State coming back from that UCLA game. They weren't super motivated, but less motivated teams with talent should still dominate teams that don't have talent. And I'm not saying Northwestern doesn't have talent. Actually, the contrary. I'm saying that Northwestern has done a good job of developing their guys. They have a good scheme, and they're able to move the ball. Do I think Zach Lujan is the best offensive coordinator in the world? No. Do I think he's good enough to be there at Northwestern and, give some teams some good games? I do think so. So we'll see what happens. But all right. Let's move on to this final game. USC and Iowa. All right, so USC is favored by 6.5 here over Iowa. The over/under is set at 49.5. Iowa is 6-3, 4-2 in the Big Ten. They won their last meeting against USC in the Holiday Bowl in 2019. However, USC does lead the series overall against them 7-3. USC is 7-2, 5-1, and this is a crucial game for them to remain in the college football playoff hunt, as there's no margin for error. Every single game is an important game at this point. If USC loses, they are definitely out. If USC wins, they are very, very likely into the playoff. Well, not wins. If they win out, they're very, very likely into the playoff. I feel like this is kind of a prove it game for Lincoln Riley, in my opinion, right? This is the game where Lincoln Riley, like, he's done some nice things. He was able to take down Michigan, and I think that was huge for him and huge for the program that he was able to do that. You have this really good recruiting class coming in. If USC finishes 8-4 this season, that's going to be really, really troublesome. If they lose this game and lose the Oregon game, I think if you finish 9-3, that's okay. I don't think the fans would love that, but I think with the recruiting class coming in, you're saying, okay, we feel better about this. The team's getting better. We can make this happen. Kind of move on. But you have to win this Iowa game. I think if Lincoln Riley loses this Iowa game, you're going to start seeing the fans kind of going crazy for this one a little bit more. So, or not like go crazy against Lincoln Riley is what I'm saying. Which I get it. I'd get frustrated with Lincoln Riley too if I was a USC fan. I'm not saying he's a bad coach or anything, but I get frustrated with him too sometimes. So I think this game is really, really important for the perception of Lincoln Riley with his own fan base. It's kind of like this idea of like we've seen some of the improvements, we've seen better. We're in the playoff hunt. It's week 12. Just keep us in it, right? Give us one last game, and if we lose in that game and we get kicked out, it is what it is. Like, yeah, it sucks to lose to Oregon. Nobody wants to lose to Oregon, but win this game, keep in the playoff hunt one more week, and have the opportunity for a 10-win season. I think that would be really, really special. Now, you guys are talking in the chat about the rain and stuff like that. I'm actually not too concerned about the rain, and I'll tell you why. So, well, I guess let me start with Iowa's offense first. Well, no, I'll start with USC's offense. So I think that USC is going to be able to run the ball, even if Jada Mayava is not, passing the ball all that much. And I think that they have a level of mobility and a level of, QB design runs they can utilize if they see the need for it. Excuse me, with Jada Mayava. Jada Mayava showed in that game against Nebraska that even if he isn't playing his best game, he is still going to be able to go out there, ball out, pick up yards with his feet, score touchdowns, and do all that stuff. Illinois won the basketball game. Wow, that's awesome. Very cool. But I think that USC is going to be able to run the ball in this one. I think that you've seen good run blocking from that offensive line. That offensive line has gotten better. They've improved. And I think that Oregon showed that maybe that Iowa defense is not as great of a rush defense as maybe we would have thought. I mean, you don't get I get Oregon best rushing attack in the country, in my opinion, but you don't get 260 yards put on you and be able to say that you're a really good run defense, in my opinion, even if it's the best run defense in the nation. I think that they're a good run defense, Iowa is, but I don't think they're great. I don't think they're elite. And I think that USC, I don't think they're going to get 260 yards on Iowa, but I would not be surprised at all if USC, between King Miller, Jada Mayava, Byron Jenkins, like, I think between those three they should be able to get close to 200 yards. Now the kind of equalizer here will be if Iowa is able to get to Jada Mayava and get some negative plays. Tackle for loss are going to be super, super important in this game. Iowa needs to get them to rattle Jada Mayava and be able to maybe, pick off a ball or two, because that's going to be huge for them. It's kind of the same stuff that we were talking about with Oregon for Iowa. They need to get the special teams mishap from USC or just make the special teams play to score, and then they need to get a timely interception to help set up their offense. The issue with Iowa and their interception they had against Dante Moore was that it didn't really set up the offense. It gave them the ball back in their own, in the red zone that Oregon was in, but it didn't really set them up all that well to be able to, score rather quickly, like Maryland was able to do against Indiana with getting that pick early on in the drive. You need to see something like that from Iowa in this game for them to get the win. And again, that's another prove it point for Lincoln Riley, because the special teams have not always been super great. And then at the end of the year last year, Jada Mayava was good enough to beat a team like Notre Dame, but he just threw too many interceptions late in that game. So have they rectified this kind of stuff on offense for USC? I think it's really important. I think that, and I had written down here, not only the Oregon game, but Penn State ran for plus 170 or 170 plus yards on them as well. I think it was like 174 or something like that. But Penn State was able to do that in a game where Ethan Grunkmeyer, it was, I believe that was one of his first starts, close after that Oregon game. For him to come out, and I think it was, what was it, third start, I think it was. But anyway, for him to come out and for them to rush for that many yards on this Iowa defense, yeah, I think King Miller will be just fine. He's a really good running back. He's displayed that he has great instincts. He hits that hole with confidence, and that's one of the biggest things as a running back, because you have to hit that hole with confidence, and when he's able to do that, it's really, obviously, really effective for their team. So on the other side, Iowa's offense, listen, I'm going to sound like an Iowa hater, and I'm not trying to be an Iowa hater, but I think Iowa could struggle rushing the ball. against USC's defense here. I think the safeties do a really good job of presenting the runs on the outside. And this team, USC, has had the ball run against them the best when you're just going straight up the middle against them. That's what Jeremiah Love was able to do. That's what Notre Dame was able to do. They were able to just go straight up the middle against USC and break off big runs and get consistent yards. I don't, that is not the way that Iowa runs the ball as much. Can they do that? Sure, of course they can do that. But they like to run to the outside a little bit more, and I think you're playing into USC's hands when you do that. I think that USC safeties have been really good this season. I think that their linebackers are rangy. I think that they have really good athleticism. Eric Gentry, he's probably the best player. Well, different things, but he's probably the most athletic and kind of freaky player on this USC defense, and I think it's going to be really, really hard for Iowa to run the ball unless they just find a way to be able to run the ball right up the gut. But even if that happens, like I think USC Silver, why am I blanking on the true freshman number 0 for USC there in the middle of that defense? Somebody will say in the chat. I'm blanking on his name right now, though. The true freshman interior defensive tackle for USC. But, I think that he has great athleticism to be able to get to the outside. He's still young, so I'm not really too concerned about it. He can get pushed around a little bit, but you get to the outside and you're going to have the athleticism of this USC defensive line show up. And I feel like D'Anton Lynn is gonna scheme up some good stuff to be able to get Iowa to lose yards. One of the things that Oregon did that was most effective against Iowa is they did not let them have a good success rate, and Iowa actually threw the ball quite a bit in that game, which was perplexing to me, but they kind of had to at times because Iowa was consistently being put in 3rd and 5 or worse. I think Iowa's average 3rd and down. Stewart, thank you. Jakeem Stewart. I knew it was a J something. I want to say Jamal, and I was like, no, that's not them. I think he was the guy that got hurt for them, Jamal Jarrett. Anyway, but yeah, Jakeem Stewart. Thank you, Church and Fight. But I think that this Iowa team is going to run into some issues trying to run on this USC defense, and I think that they're going to get in some more of these 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 situations that just are not favorable for Iowa. Do I think it'll happen as much as it did against Oregon? Maybe. I mean, USC is going to be at home, and we saw them at home. Number 4. Yeah. Why did I say number 0? But I think they're going to have more struggles with it than maybe some people are going to recognize, because people are just going to look at that Notre Dame game and be like, yeah, they can't stop the run. Iowa's going to be able to run the ball over them. Well, no, I think it's a little bit different ways of the way they run it, and I think that Iowa will be running into their hands a little bit. Now, Mark Gronowski has been better as a passer, and they've schemed some things up here recently. I don't think you can completely neglect the passing game as, some people have with Iowa a little bit. It's fair to do, don't get me wrong, but I do think that they're able to hit some shots, and they're kind of able to utilize, some more screens and stuff like that to help out the team a little bit more. And Mark Gronowski, especially with his passing and stuff. So you can't completely discount the passing game. It has gotten better and stuff, but overall, USC, the high-powered offense, even in the rain, the way that offensive line has been blocking, run blocking specifically, I think USC is going to be set up for a win in this one. I have USC winning this game 31-21, winning it. And USC, listen, they're just a better team at home. Not trying to, talk bad about them on the road or anything like that. They've actually been pretty impressive on the road at times this season. Impressive against Nebraska, impressive against Illinois, even though they lost that game. But I think this USC team is a different animal at home. You saw the way they bullied Michigan. You saw the way that they were able to just completely shut down Northwestern there in the second half, as they should, but they did what they were supposed to do. I don't think you're going to see a complete shutdown like that. I think this will probably be a close game, and then I think USC is going to get a touchdown or something late to kind of put it out of reach. So base 4L says 24-14 USC. Yeah, I think that's a good prediction. So I think there was another one in here. Dave says 21-14 USC. Yeah. I have Iowa scoring 21. That might be a little high. I think you guys are on a good track here with like 14, 17, stuff like that for them. So um Base says one field goal away from being 8-1 in the top 12, man. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and honestly, in that Illinois USC game, it was really it was really that big 75-yard play, right? Where the backup center was in there and he was like blocking downfield. And I mean, just a terrible mistake by him, but yeah, I mean, the blocking downfield and everything. Yeah. So, we will see. Bull says 27-14 Iowa. You know what? I'll change my pick. You guys have convinced me. 31-14 USC. Seems like it's a bit of a blowout if that happens, but you know what? I think USC is a good team. Good team. And I think that Oregon game is going to be fantastic coming up. So, all right. Well, hey, we did it. A 2-hour live stream. Me by myself. Apparently, I can just talk and talk and talk. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. If you're listening on podcasts, this is like an hour and 15 one of just me talking by myself, and it is what it is. So, Fight On says if you keep Iowa under 17, it's a win. Oh, no question. No question. Even with the rain and stuff like that, you keep them under 17. I think USC is going to score well enough to get over 17. So, all right, guys. Appreciate you being here. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.